Good morning, everyone. Hope it's an absolutely epic day. I'm going to be talking to you about something super exciting today. That is indexing the Optimism Bridge, but not just on Optimism, also on Mainnet and how that works. So quickly before we start off, we are going to be using Envio to do this, envio.dev, and there's going to be hopefully a nice little quick start tutorial along with this written, so you can follow along video, you can follow along text, and it's going to be a really nice way to see how you can use Envio to index Optimism and different chains at the same time. So with further ado, let's first actually look at what we're going to index today and why it's interesting. So we'll start off actually with this Optimism Bridge contract. You can see it's got this nice address here, and you can see every so often there are functions such as withdraw being called, and if you have a look at this events tab over here, you can see there's all kinds of events being emitted here and there. Things like deposit finalized, ETH bridge finalized, ERC20 bridge finalized, and you can dig more into the details of what's actually happening here, but at this stage, let's just say we're very interested in getting real-time all of this Optimism related bridging information. Now, a bridge implies you have some kind of structure between two, I guess bodies of land or blockchains in this case. And where's the other one? That is ETH mainnet. So I already have this address nicely up here. If we look on Etherscan, and here you can see there's nearly 400,000 transactions. There's lots of stuff to do with the Optimism Bridge going on over here. You can see the deposit ETH transactions pending. And again, if we go over to the events tab, we see things like ETH bridge initiated, ETH deposit initiated, ERC20 bridge initiated, all of these events with very interesting information being emitted. So how are we going to index these? We're going to start absolutely from blank scrop 0. And what's really nice is we're going to index the events not just on Ethereum Mainnet, but also on Optimism. And we're going to index them to the same essentially database and have a nice GraphQL endpoint to query all of this data. And we're going to start off by doing this without needing any code. That's going to give us our boilerplate, and then from there we'll be free to make adjustments. So the first thing you'll need to do is have Envio installed, and if you don't know how to do that, you can head over to Envio, check on the docs over here, and in getting started it tells you the prerequisites. It's very nice and simple how to get started. I already have Envio installed, so I'm very simply going to run the Envio init command. And if you look at the guides over here, this importing contract shows you how super simple it is to create a boilerplate. So with that in mind, you see I have this empty repository over here. I'm going to run Envio init. I'm going to call it Optimism Bridge Indexer is the name of my cool indexer. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to use TypeScript. There's multiple different languages you can use when you index. We generally recommend TypeScript. And as I said, I'm going to use this super simple contract import feature over here. There we go. And all I'm going to do is smack bang import it from the block explorer. And let's import the Optimism contract first. You can see there's lots of different options. And if we head back here and we simply just grab the address of this contract, we can put that in. And what's going to happen is it's going to go fetch all of the events for us. Which events would you like to index? Let's just say we want to actually index, which ones should we index? Let's just say we only want to index the deposit finalized one. So let's do that. And we will do that. And we will filter up and down. And we will use space to select deposit finalized. And let's also let's just do deposit finalized. Why not? Just that one event for now. And instead of being finished, what we're going to do is we're going to actually add a different contract, right? We're now going to go and we're going to add an Ethereum Mainnet contract, which over here, if we grab the address, we can simply add. We're going to paste this in here. And again, we're going to be given the option of which events do we actually want to index, right? And again, I'm actually just going to only index a couple of them. Let's just choose one. We can very easily index all of them, but just for what the code generator looks like, we might as well just do something a bit simple to start off with. So let's say we are going to have an ETH deposit initiated, and maybe, yeah, let's leave it at that for now. And let's hit enter, and let's say we're finished. And just like that, you'll see our indexer is being generated. So as I said, we could have chosen all of those events. We could have chosen none of them. I'm going to bring up what the VS Code looks like, which we can have a chat with in a second. But before we do that, I'm actually going to start the indexer. Now I'm actually just running Envio stop in case I was running another indexer before, which was very possible. So you can ignore that for now, but I'm just cleaning up whatever indexing I might have been doing before. And now you simply run the command envio dev. This is once you've simply created and imported the contracts like I've shown you in that process. And just like that, we are going to get an indexer that started indexing. Now I'll show you all of what's going on now in a second, but before I show you more about that, while it's busy indexing, I'm actually going to show you what this generated code looks like. So you can see, and let me increase the size of my screen so it's nice and simple for you to see. The first thing we have is this config.yaml, and this is interesting as it tells us all the networks that we want to index, the start blocks to index, the addresses we want to index, and importantly, the events we care about indexing, right? So very simply, we said these were the only two events for each contract we cared about indexing. This network is Optimism, this network is Mainnet. Thanks to the fact that we're using hypersync, which is about 100 times faster than using the RPC to grab event data, we don't actually need to worry about adding the start block. We can simply put 0 and lightning quick, it will pick up when events are actually emitted. So this is the first very simple entry point for you, your config.yaml. And again, this was all completely generated just through those simple CLI commands from when I created the index and I pasted those various addresses. Right, now the next interesting thing is the schema.graphql, and this has been created for us over here. And this is simply saving these two events that we selected. So there's this ETH deposit initiated and deposit finalized. Those were the two events we cared about. And right now it's simply created these data structures which represent these events. And what it's going to do is simply save them. And this is just a very simple summary showing the amount of times that these events actually will occur. Now the third file I want to take your attention to is the event handler. Now this actually defines what happens when one of these events are emitted. So essentially what happens when one of these events are emitted, this specific code runs over here, this handler code. Now don't worry too much about the loader. That isn't relevant right now. That's just an additional optimization that you can ignore, but it helps the indexer become even faster. But the handler essentially says what code is going to run when I receive this event. And very simply, you can see the long and the short of what's happening is it's actually just saving this entity, and it's using the .set command and it's saving it. It's in TypeScript. I'm not going to go through it right now, but very simple to pick up. Essentially, it's just saving this new entity. And again, you can see all the details around it in the Envio docs, where it's very easy to see and understand how exactly to save entities and handle them. Right, so now I'm going to look again. I showed you we were indexing. We have indexed 340,000 events, 356 since we were chatting. So lightning quick, we're actually going and indexing all of the events that are emitted from these two contracts. And if I hit this data tab, I can actually come to this little table, event sync state, which we've set up, which shows us on Ethereum mainnet and on Optimism which block number we actually currently on. Generally, if you wanted to index 100 millions of blocks and save hundreds and thousands of events, it would be often something that could take hours, if not days. And we reduce that case to just a couple of minutes, often even less, thanks to hypersync and the way we suck through events. So as I said, we're already at the case where we've got nearly 500,000 events. And yeah, we can look at a bunch of the different events. For example, this deposit finalized. And something we could look at getting, say, 10 deposit finalized events, and let's order them by the amount, where we say perhaps want to have the greatest amount first, and let's see the amount, and let's see who it's from, and let's see who it's to, and perhaps the L1 and L2 token. And then very simply you can run that query and you can quickly see the largest amounts, who it's from and to, and the different L1 tokens. So that just gives you real-time access to this indexed information really quickly, which is nice and fun. Again, I'm going to show you just this aggregate count. You can see we are nearly at 600,000 events, which means it's indexing really fast. And you can see, yeah, event fetch is caught up to the head of the chain, waiting for new blocks. That's essentially showing that we have now got to the point where we have reached the tip of the chain. You can see in the logs that was in about 5 minutes. We've scanned through the entire Optimism and Ethereum network, and we've managed to very nicely, very nicely, let me get rid of this, and run that index near 600,000 events extremely quickly and run through the entire chain. Again, if you head through data here, we could look at all of these deposit finalized events, all of these ETH deposit initiated events. Again, we can access all of them through a nice GraphQL API. And that's just a building block. This was generated and indexed in under 5 minutes, which is incredibly powerful to generate and index a multi-chain situation. Again, both the Ethereum Optimism Bridge and the Optimism Bridge over here. And again, I've just shown you that was how the boilerplate looked. Now, the next thing we could start to do is define things like users, and perhaps we want to have custom logic and save custom events over here. And every time those events are actually triggered, then that specific event handler logic will be handled over here, and it will be written into this schema.graphql, and you'll be able to see that over here in the Explorer, what that data looks like. But we won't get into that just now. I think this is sufficient for today, showing you what a multi-chain indexer looks like and how simple it is to set up. And yeah, now I'd encourage you to go play around with it, perhaps define some more events that you want to index. I'd say extend your schema and think about what information you actually care about and what you want to save. And then, of course, make sure in your event handlers to handle that information appropriately and then save it in it. So again, that's a nice little summary. So what's going on with Envio? I hope that was helpful. We've indexed the Optimism Bridge, both the Optimism contract on Ethereum Mainnet and the Optimism Bridge contract on Optimism. And we'll leave it for you to play around and index a bit further. And don't forget to like, subscribe, ask a bunch of questions. We're more than happy to help you. Very, very keen to hear your thoughts. And yeah, there's many other cool use cases to check out. So thanks again for checking this out.